Coming up on Fresh Outlook, a startling report this week that says the Earth's temperature is indeed rising more quickly than first thought. So can the world tackle the complicated issue of climate change? And can world leaders, environmentalists, and naysayers work together to save the planet? Then coming up, 50 years later, the U.S. Supreme Court weighs in on the controversial Voting Rights Act. Did it need to be changed, or, as the Supreme Court said, are parts of it a relic of a civil rights era long since gone? We talk about what happens next. And then it is a trial involving the always sticky issues of gun control, race, and motive. We review the start of the George Zimmerman trial, the man charged with the murder and the death of teenager Trayvon Martin. All of that is next on Fresh Outlook. Hello, I'm Frank Cipolla, and welcome to Fresh Outlook. We start this week with the complicated issue of climate change. And joining us on the panel this segment are Republican Dee Dee Benkie, and also joining us on the panel today, Tom Leyden. He's the CEO of Solar Grid, one of the pioneers and proponents of solar power. And also joining us is David Pringle of the New Jersey Environmental Federation. And via satellite from Washington joining us is Suzanne Hunt. She is the president of Hunt Green, which provides strategies to businesses looking for renewable energy. Welcome, everyone.
Happy to be here.
Let's discuss this. The president made a major speech this week about climate change. He's beyond his re-election, so he can work with broader strokes, as it were. But was it a good idea to tackle this really complex issue now, and is it really workable and doable?
I think he said the next meeting of the Flat Earth Society is canceled. Climate change is real, the overwhelming scientific consensus says so, and that humans are a significant contributor to it. If we want to avoid the worst aspects of severe weather, losing Cape May, Newark Airport, Long Beach Island, then we need to deal with it, and the president stepped up to the plate.
Now, obviously, you have a financial stake in this. Solar power is one of the renewable energies that's out there. But do you feel as though this is a significant enough issue for the president to take on, and do you agree?
Oh, it's absolutely an important issue. Unfortunately, in my view, it just hasn't gone far enough. I mean, I think the president's doing everything he can under the conditions he deals with right now. The political environment. He's taking matters into his own hands, doing what he can unilaterally without the support of Congress. But we really should be working on a comprehensive energy plan and climate change reduction plan if we really want to see things happen properly.
All right, let's talk with Dee Dee Benkie, the Republican strategist, and then we're going to look at a report that we actually had this week on this very issue.
Well, as president of the Flat Earth Society, I really think we need to be focused much more on jobs and a lot of this renewable energy. I mean, obviously, $849 million was lost with Solyndra. That was a big waste. This keeps happening. So, instead of talking about theory and so forth, might happen, might not, better to focus on jobs and on coal and on the resources that we have. So I just think it's a lot of bunk.
All right, let's talk to Suzanne Hunt, who's president of Hunt Green, and as I mentioned at the top, provides strategies to businesses looking for renewable energy. She's via satellite in Washington, D.C. So tell us what your take is on this, Suzanne.
Hi. Yeah, I think that I agree that the president has gone as far as he thinks he can go, and now it's up to the American people to pressure Congress to do their job and take bold action on this this massive challenge that we're facing. But to Dee Dee's point on jobs, the United States wind industry right now employs more people than are members of the coal miners union. These are real jobs. They're jobs that can't be exported, and they're jobs that don't result in toxic emissions, destroyed landscapes, and catastrophic climate change. And I want to say to the question about is this a big enough issue, this is not just environmentalists and people who care about the planet that are talking about jobs and about the importance of addressing climate change. The International Energy Agency, the conservative International Energy Agency, has put out a report recently saying that climate change is threatening civilization as we know it. They've said that we need nothing short of a revolution. These are their words, again, not mine. We need nothing short of a revolution in the energy sector.
All right, Suzanne, let me hold right there. Let's stop right there for a moment. We actually had a report on this on Ebru TV earlier this week. Let's take a look at that, and we'll come back and we'll follow up.
And disaster relief. As a
President Barack Obama laid out a broad new plan to fight climate change. He used executive powers to get around flat Earth science deniers who have blocked action in Congress.
I refuse to condemn your generation and future generations to a planet that's beyond fixing. And that's why today I'm announcing a new national climate action plan, and I'm here to enlist your generation's help in keeping the United States of America a leader, a global leader in the fight against climate change.
Obama called for new restrictions on existing and new power plants to curb carbon emissions. 2012 was the warmest year in human history, leaving farmlands parched and rivers dry.
Americans across the country are already paying the price of inaction in insurance premiums, state and local taxes, and the costs of rebuilding and disaster relief.
Many in Congress dispute the science, holding that carbon dioxide emissions contribute to a dangerously warming planet.
97% of scientists, including, by the way, some who originally disputed the data, have now put that to rest. They've acknowledged the planet is warming and human activity is contributing to it.
He also touched on the Keystone Pipeline project.
And our national interest will be served only if this project does not significantly exacerbate the problem of carbon pollution.
The specifics of much of his plan were unclear, and many of Obama's new rules could face court challenges that would delay their start.
And we're back discussing climate change, and it looks as though from the initial conversation that poor Dee Dee Benkie is 3-1 against. So we'll give you the first shot at this. I know you mentioned jobs. Let me play devil's advocate, Dee Dee. Many people would say jobs is really short-term and short-sighted, because jobs are important, of course. We're not saying they are, but the health of the planet is something you cannot negotiate 20 years from now and say, okay, we're ready to discuss this. By that time, it might be too late.
Well, I'm sorry, but I think we need to focus on the here and now, like the Keystone Pipeline, and not stop that because some spotted frog, to save that. I mean, there are so many jobs with that, as well as, we should drill closely. We should obviously be drilling in Alaska, and we should focus on what we have, the resources that we do. In some theory, it might be true, it might not, we don't know. We need to focus on the here and now and not waste all this money on the boondoggles of this renewable energy that's not working.
All right, now she says
with all
theory.
due respect, there is no PhD here. She's a Republican activist, I'm a public health activist. Over 97% of the scientists, the geophysicists, the climatologists, the folks with PhDs after them that have been studying this for years, overwhelming consensus, thousands of them, over 97% of them say climate change is real, it's happening, it's going to have devastating consequences unless we take aggressive action. Fortunately, the same solutions to climate change are also good for jobs. Wind, solar, energy, incredible job creators. We can't do everything, so why don't we invest in the jobs that are good for the environment and good for the economy?
All right, before we go back to Dee Dee and Suzanne Hunt as well, let's talk about Solyndra.
Oh, please. I mean, that's such old news at this point. It's kind of ridiculous to bring up at this stage.
No,
Solyndra was just a
you
small
can't deal
part.
with the facts, you deal with facts.
Excuse me. Solyndra was just a small part of an overall portfolio that the government decided to pursue, and it failed. There are so many other great success stories in that same portfolio. But even taking that away, I'm not a big believer in government choosing individual companies.
Agreed.
Government should provide incentives one way or the other, in my view, market incentives, that let us compete against coal. We're happy to compete against coal, but coal can't get away with the cost of pouring emissions into the environment without paying for it, because we do pay for it at some point. So if you level the playing field, either providing a cost of emitting the emissions into the atmosphere, or set emission standards and ramp them down, and then let the market compete. And I'm fully confident that solar will.
Let's bring Suzanne Hunt into this. We have seen Hurricane Sandy. We have seen twisters like we've never seen before in the Midwest. We had a drought in the Midwest, the worst one we've had since the 1950s. There are still people out there who say that it doesn't exist, and if they have the scientific data to support that, more power to them. But Suzanne, do they have a good argument in your mind that it doesn't exist? It's all, it's still a controversy?
You like being 3-1, right?
Look, there's no controversy within the scientific community whatsoever, and the time that we waste on this quote-unquote controversy is time that we are not devoting to dealing with this massive challenge. And I want to go back to Dee Dee, and it's a bit unfair because the those of us who have advanced degrees in these issues in environmental science and have been working on these issues for decades are at an advantage here because we have a lifetime of experience to bring to this. So we shouldn't fault Dee Dee for her lack of knowledge in what is working and what isn't. So to her point about that renewables not working is just absolutely not correct. If you look at Germany, Germany is the fourth largest it's the fourth largest economy in the world. It's a massive industrial power. They're already at 25% renewable electricity, and their grid is far more reliable than our grid. So if you don't enjoy power outages, then keep that in mind. There are 30 states in the United States that have renewable portfolio standards. There's more than 30 states, and not one of them not one of those states is experiencing higher electricity costs because of it. This is an inevitable technological transformation that we're going through. The United States has been through many of them throughout our history. We went from horse and buggies to cars. We went from typewriters to word processors. We went from landline phones to cell phones. And every single one of those technology transformations has made us a stronger country and has improved our lives.
All right,
this switch to clean, renewable energy is going to do the same thing. And we can either go kicking and screaming like many of the Flat Earth Society folks would like to, or we can be like the Pentagon, we can be like Germany, and we can lead the way and we can benefit from it.
Are we being too cynical to say that there's some sort of financial motive behind this? I hear this a lot, that the major fossil fuel companies are doing this for a reason. They're causing confusion so they can continue to operate as they usually have.
It's just like Philip Morris and the tobacco companies in the 1960s. Even though they had the memos, they knew it was bad for your health, they denied it and they hired doctors to deny it. It's the same thing.
But if the scientific evidence is so overwhelming, why isn't everyone seeing this so clearly?
Because if you say it over and over again, maybe you'll believe it.
I mean, on the other side of the argument.
And because there are vested interests in the older technologies. Now, some of the smarter, larger corporations are jumping on board. I mean, this left-wing wacko Warren Buffett just invested $1 billion in a solar project in Southern California. Walmart, Bloomberg, Dow Jones, these are not granola crunchers. And we are moving in the direction of renewables. It's inevitable. It's just a matter of time. It is disruptive and it is painful as you move from one to the other, and some people suffer. But the reality is there's more opportunity in the newer generation of energies. And
then why aren't more companies like ExxonMobil and Shell and the rest of them getting more aggressively into this if there is money to be made in this?
There's more money in the short term to be made by burning up the planet. If they don't have to pay the true cause of the respiratory and cardiac disease that their coal emits, that their fracking and oil emits, then that's how they're going to make a buck.
Dee Dee's jumping out of her seat.
Look, first I want to agree with what you said. I don't think the government should be in the business of picking companies to invest in. I think that's wrong. Just stay out of it. Let the free market work. However, when we talk about the renewable energies, it really hasn't produced a lot of jobs, not compared to what we have now, compared to the pipelines and the drilling.
Yeah, but is it about jobs or is it about the planet?
It should be about jobs. That's the question here. Whenever I say I do not have the knowledge,
so forget about all the
this is
people
what I
that got hurt in Sandy and Katrina and the Twisters?
As in money and jobs versus a green plan, because we do not know if that's the case
Take
yet.
it on with jobs.
When will it happen? Will it happen in a billion years? Well, I mean, as Frank said, if it's that overwhelming, why isn't John Boehner and others going along with it? Because people
more
don't
lung
believe
disease, more cancer, more cardiac
well,
arrests.
That's
what coal
you're
and oil
saying.
means.
I'm just telling
no,
you
it's what the doctors
the
and the
number
PhDs
one issue
say.
for Americans are jobs. They think more about that than anything else right now. That is statistically proven. So, sorry, let's go where the jobs are and let's go where the energy is. And we don't want energy to go sky high.
And
just so we can experiment.
I'm happy to talk about jobs all day and night about renewable energy.
Well, you generate jobs through your company.
Not as many, though.
There are 120,000 jobs in the U.S. right now in renewable energy. The industry has been growing leaps and bounds. 65% average growth over the last 10 years. I mean, that's extraordinary growth. The biggest new energy source in the U.S. last quarter was solar energy. So we're moving in that direction. It creates many more jobs than others. And look, we need a comprehensive energy policy that takes into account all these things. A transition to new fuels, moving away from the dirtiest fuels or finding ways to burn them more cleanly, and then moving towards renewables.
Well, let me ask Suzanne Hunt in Washington from Hunt Green. Why can't it be all of the above? I mean, why can't we have solar energy? Why can't we have wind? Why can't we have fossil fuels? The president has said many, many times, I am for all of the above.
Yeah, the president is walking a delicate political line, and I think that there's a lot of fear from people that are in the fossil fuel industry that they are going to lose their jobs, and we do need to be sensitive to that. There were a lot of people in the horse and buggy industry that lost their jobs when the automobile was invented, but we can be smart about that. We can take a small fraction of the billions and billions of dollars that our taxpayer money goes to subsidize fossil fuels. We can take just a small fraction of that and use it for training programs, for retraining folks, for small business grants. If you look at the state of West Virginia, for example, an example of coal country, they just permitted a large wind development with not one single objection to it in the public comment. I think there's a broad base, there's a lot of Americans that want renewable energy, they want these jobs, and they want a transition. And I think we need to think about this as a rapid transition off of fossil fuels. It's not going to be draconian. We do need to think about people who are going to lose their jobs, but really we shouldn't get stuck on that. It's really not that many people in the scheme of things. And we need to focus on the massive opportunity of these new and clean energy sectors, and also broaden the discussion. It's not just about energy generation. There's a huge amount of money to be saved and to be made in energy efficiency technologies. If you look at buildings are the massive consumer of electricity in this country. Anyone who's in Manhattan can go to One Bryant Park and see the Bank of America's skyscraper. It's probably the greenest skyscraper in the world. It was designed by Terrapin Bright Green and their partners, Cook plus Fox, and they achieved 50% reduction in water, 40% reduction in energy use in the building. The air going out of the building is cleaner than the air going in the building. They have higher worker productivity. They can charge higher rents in the parts of the building they don't use themselves. And that building cost 2.5% more in construction costs, and it's already paid for itself. It paid for itself in less than 5 years.
All right, Susan,
so it's not as simplistic as energy.
Let me stop you there for just a moment, if I may, because let's throw it back to the panel. Suzanne brought up the issue of money. This would take a lot of money to make that transition unless it's spread over a great amount of time. Maybe we don't have that time, I'm not sure, but
it'll cost even more if we continue relying on the fossil fuel industry to power our country.
David, Mr. Leyden.
It's cheaper, faster, better to put solar energy in now than it is to build new power plants. That's a fact, and that's Wall Street telling us that. So even against the older power, dirtier power, which has been amortized and subsidized by the ratepayers, we can compete now. There are many, many states where solar is being put in for less than they pay in utility bills right now. So just one point. Germany, again, this like wacko society out there, they have a goal to have 80% renewable energy by 2050. Now, if we don't keep up with the Germans, we're not going to be competitive. It's not ideological. This is about business.
Well, putting the jobs issue aside, Dee Dee, do you object to attempting renewable energy, making it work, building? I mean, the Republicans are always for generating jobs, and this is a whole new arena where jobs can be made in addition to everything else. But putting that aside, do you have on its face an objection to these types of renewable energies?
Well, we've only got so much money. Right now our country has a financial problem. So the huge amount of money that it takes for this transition, and it does, it's very expensive. I know what you're saying is down the road it wouldn't be as much, but right now it is. It's just incredibly expensive. So I think the money needs to be put in the jobs right now, into the energies that we have now. Don't destroy the coal industry, which basically the Obama administration is trying to do. Focus on that instead of these theories, renewable energy, and going to the laboratory. We just don't have the money for that right now.
We agree. If we did that, if there was a fair playing field, wind and solar and energy efficiency would win and fossil fuels would lose. But we don't have an even playing field now. We subsidize the oil industry up the wazoo. We pay for coal through our health. We're the insurers for the nuclear industry. If we got rid of those subsidies or subsidized wind and solar energy efficiency the same way, we'd win.
Okay. We have run out of time. This was a very lively discussion, which I enjoy. I want to thank Suzanne Hunt in Washington for joining us, and of course, here in studio, Dee Dee Benkie, and also Mr. Tom Leyden, the CEO of Solar Grid, one of the pioneers of solar power, and also our good friend here, David Pringle from the New Jersey Environmental Federation. Thank you very much, panel. And coming up on Fresh Outlook, the U.S. Supreme Court with a flurry of rulings this week, including opening up changes to a law dating back to the U.S. civil rights era of the 1960s. We'll be back.